Hi everybody. We are going to do a Q&A today, and hopefully here I will get my act together on the chat this time, which would be a nice trick. And but I want to do some stuff first. Next week, Saturday the 26th, Jay Weissman is going to be here. Yay. And we're going to do an interview of sorts, or a conversation with Jay, which should be great fun. So, why is this not working? Why do I always have such problems with this crap? And I also, sorry about the noise. I found me. Let's watch me. See if I can actually get chat here. Hey, we're live. Oh, volume.
No feedback.
Okay. Well, hello everybody. All right. So one thing I wanted to do really quick is Patty here. Are you here, Patty? Say hi so I know. Oh no. Hi, Jeannie. Oh, there she is. Look, 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 look. Hopefully you can see this. Come on. Yay, coffee mug. It was a nice present. And then, of course, the little box that it came in, which is really cool, too. It was really nice. So thank you very much for your gift. It was greatly appreciated. So, anyways, back to Jay. You should get his book if you want the best-selling book about S&M or the BDSM lifestyle. I believe it's called Realistic Introduction. You usually can find them in pretty much any adult store or, of course, on Amazon. And if you are looking for toys, I highly recommend going to the Frugal Dom, FRUGALDOMME.com, and they have a wonderful selection of toys. So everybody should go there and visit because she's my friend and I really like her. So, one thing I would like to do is possibly, because Jay is coming, if you guys have any questions that you would like to have answered when he is here. Oh, thank you for the frugaldom.com thing. So if you can, it would be great for, well, that's very odd. Anyways, it would be great for you to ask your questions now, and then that way I can just write them down. Because Jay, usually once you start him talking, it's going to go a while between questions probably. So, and then, of course, if you have any questions for today, this is what we're here for. So hopefully you guys will have some questions for us. But we had thought, I wanted Dawn that I don't have to train myself. What resources are available? Well, you really can't really train yourself. It's not the way it works. You're going to have to find a Dom somewhere. Probably a good way to do it is to go on FetLife, look up organizations and people in your area, and try to find a group. Go to a social of some kind and meet some people, and more than likely you'll find somebody that would be willing to train you. And
there is a good book out. It's called The Bottoming Book. It's put out by Greenery Press. It's the same people that put Jay's book out. They're located in Berkeley. So if you look up Greenery Press, they've got the Topping book. Very small, very thin, great book. Same thing with the Bottoming book. It's very concise, and if you're new into the scene, or you're interested in the scene and your partner may not be, it talks about how to introduce this to a vanilla partner.
Is there such as a switch? Yes, I'm a switch, actually. I started as a submissive became a dominant, and do both. I don't get to be a submissive as often as I would like, but I do love it, and will continue to do so probably as long as I'm playing. So yes, there are switches. They are real. And it seems from what my experience is that most switches start as submissives, then become dominants. I don't know any dominants that have gone the other way. Though my guess is that there probably are some. I just don't happen to know who they are. I like sub boy's appearance, but don't like being a dominant. Well, you just should do what you like, because that's where the fun is. If you don't try adjusting to something you think you like. Just do what you like. We were also thinking about talking about collaring a little bit. Collaring is, well, here, you describe collaring.
Well, collaring is, in many ways, a very formal way of saying you are my submissive or you are my slave. It can be as light as something that you put on or use while you're only playing. It can have as much meaning to it as an engagement or a wedding ring, if you're really in a committed relationship.
Especially the 24/7 sub-slave or slave-dom relationships.
Master-dom type relationship.
Will you save the replay? I have to go. And yes, you can catch the replay for 24 hours here on Periscope, or you can go to catch.me/MistressXmas, spelled XMAS, and you will find all of our videos there. And you can also look me up on Google. Just do MistressXmas, one word, XMAS again, and you will find my YouTube channel, which also has everything. What does BDSM stand for?
Bondage, domination, sadomasochism, submission.
Yeah, then there's dominance and submission, which is D/S as well. Bondage. Oh yes, thank you for pointing these things out. I love that Velvet's so good. She's like having like your own little secretary every time you do a scope. She always is right there with all the information. It's so cool. Thank you. I love that so much. So, you want to continue on about the collaring thing?
Collars can be as fancy as a nice piece of jewelry, or I've done a number of them which are basically 2 steel rings on a piece of cord, and they can look like a new age kind of necklace. Your sub or slave can wear that 24/7, only when you play. There can be a lot of rules and ceremony in putting them on and taking them off. Usually if you're playing, the person you're with...
How soon is too soon to collar?
That depends on the situation. I wouldn't do it... Maybe I wouldn't probably do it the first night. Like, hi, I just met you, here's a collar. It also depends on how tight of a bond you have with the person. I've had situations where I've had a collared submissive, but I could have as many as 6 people who were wearing my collar. Now, I had people who when we were doing demos, would come into the place and they would want to hang out, and they didn't want to be running around without any kind of protection. So I had collars that I had made that we said that that was to my house. And on the tag it had...
I agree. It does depend on the meaning you attach to the collar. Yeah. And I define collaring a little different. I only collar my submissives that have been with me long enough that it's a meaningful thing to do. So I often will only have one submissive ever at a time that I actually am willing to collar.
Well, the other ones I had were what I would refer to as a protection collar. If they came in, they got one of these things, which meant they could play with anybody they wanted to, they could do pretty much anything they wanted to, but if somebody started bothering them, they could point to it and say, see, I'm with this person, leave me alone. yeah, usually I only have one caller at a time, maybe two at the most.
Like when we're at events, I have put collars and leashes on people to lead them around safely throughout
Yeah.
a public play space. But I don't associate that in the same way as collaring a submissive for the purpose of I am your only dom and you are my main submissive or partner. For a lot of people, this really can be a 24/7 deal, and the whole collaring thing really can be almost like a marriage. And often I've been to many where they have amazing ceremonies, and they make a big deal out of it and have a party and everything else, and that's great. But for me, when you talk about collaring, you're talking also about training at the same time, because I think really in order to collar somebody, you want them to be trained properly, and you want them to know exactly how they're supposed to respond in every kind of environment, whether it's public or private, and how you want to be addressed, what they're allowed to do. I mean, so training is goes hand in hand prior to collaring, in my opinion. And not many people actually seem to get formal training in that regard. I do just a lot of play, and I don't even bother, to train people, because I know that it's just either as a demo or they are people that I'm not going to be experiencing over and over again. Is it okay to rescind a collar? Of course it is.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And it works both ways. Your slave can just as much say goodbye as you can as a dom.
Yes.
This is always a two-way relationship, and communication is always the most important part of that relationship.
I've rescinded a few collars over the years for people to
What does rescind mean?
take away.
Taking away the collar, or taking away your relationship with that particular submissive.
I've also in one situation had a submissive that was doing a lot of things that they shouldn't have. So for punishment, I took her collar off of her for a night, and I wouldn't let her wear it. And that was as much or more stronger punishment than if I had used a cat o' nine tails on her for, an hour straight. I mean, that really sunk home how close she was, she was treading on thin ice. Questions?
I'm waiting for him.
Okay.
So hopefully everybody will be around for next weekend, because that's going to be great fun with Jay. I just didn't know the meaning, not a native speaker. Okay. Oops.
Lots to bear.
Yes, you're still tying bears.
I have moose.
Well, hopefully everybody's gotten their little bears by now, the ones that were sent out. I think some people have gotten them, but I don't know if everybody's gotten their toys yet. How do you bring a topic to a vanilla? Is that what I read? Well, I think anytime you're bringing up any kind of sex-related subject, whether it's a kinky one or not, to somebody that is vanilla, I mean, you just have to go as you feel with it. I think sometimes people are more open to new things, and sometimes people are not.
Go slow.
Yeah, I think humor is always the best way to start in these situations, because often a joke about something is easier to back away from if you get a negative reaction than if you're talking seriously. So.
And don't be surprised if you broach the subject that the person you're talking to may suddenly go, oh my God, this is something I've wanted to do my entire life.
Yeah, that's an excellent idea. Share a fantasy, see how they respond. I agree. I think spanking in fun play, which every couple somewhere along the line seems to do, is such a great way to get started, because you get the reactions pretty immediately as to whether or not this is a fun thing, fooling around. And I think defining roles, who's going to be top or bottom in the situation, is more than flexible, because I think it can go either way sometimes. Make them watch the movie Secretary and see how they react. Well, that might be a good idea. But,
Exit to Eden is another one.
Oh my God. Well,
that's a comedy.
It is a comedy. It is goofy.
And it does have a pretty severe, a lot of BDSM in it.
Yeah, but not really real BDSM.
No.
So it's sort of a 50 Shades. Well, it's probably a little bit better than 50 Shades, but they're both pretty awful. I think we could think of 50 examples. Yes, we could.
Oh, if you've got a vanilla person somebody who is vanilla, you want to broach the subject to, ask them if they've read 50 Shades and what they thought of it. Since that seems to be a book that almost everybody has either heard of or read or dealt with in the last couple of years.
Are you two a couple? No. He is my dom, and other than that, we're friends. Megan is married. Yes. My wife is in the other room. She is not really into the whole BDSM thing, though. She's more than happy to let me do my thing, which is wonderful. Okay, guys, let's get some questions going here, or I'm going to go to sleep.
Don't go to sleep.
Which would really be good. I haven't been sleeping well, but that's another story. Ooh, Patty, how's baking going? Were there explosions and large amounts of carbon involved?
Patty bakes?
Well, apparently she did today.
Yeah.
Wow, it's like dead as a doornail in here, people. What else can we talk about? We could talk about... I was going to do a demo on possibly cupping and wax. But you know, well, maybe cupping would still be a relatively good one, because it would make for a fair demonstration. And wax is sort of simple and easy is the problem with trying to do a demo about wax, because really, I mean, the only real trick is using real paraffin, and then the distance at which you let it drip and the quantity. Which is obviously start far away and then work your way closer. So I'm not sure it would make it for a great demo.
And wax will glow under a black
actually,
light.
I think maybe I've died here.
Which is fun. If you've got access to it, TheraWax, which is what they use for physical therapy, and I think possibly doing manicures. It's got an extremely low melt point, and there's some mineral oil in it so it doesn't stick. It works really well. Make sure if you're doing wax that have a sheet or a tarp or something underneath you or over the area you're working on.
Oh, hey, finally it's working again. So
because it will stick to things. Once you get it on the person, you're going to have to peel it off and...
Here, 1 sec. I'll be right back.
Peel it off. I don't see anybody talking.
Well, just talk about something.
So you'll have to peel it off, and you get little flakes and bits of wax everywhere, and it can make a mess. That's the only problem to wax.
Wax is a little messy, I agree, which is why I don't use it very often unless I'm in a
Somebody
public
said
place
hi, and I
space.
couldn't make out who it was.
Somebody said hi, Charles. Howard did.
Oh, hi, Howard.
Wife, what? Something about bruising? I missed the bruising. Best and worst part of the scene. I don't know. What is the best and worst part of
It depends on the scene, but maybe the entire scene.
Did your wife find that difficult? Find what difficult? I missed so much.
Was it the bruising part?
I don't know. Does your wife find bruises on you difficult? Actually, I don't get very many bruises.
I don't bruise people.
Yeah, I mean, we play hard occasionally, but they don't ever seem to last long, so it really hasn't been an issue.
I can work on somebody for an hour plus and not leave bruises. I've been doing this a really long time. People who have played with are amazed at how consistent when I do a flogging scene, how consistent it is, how each strike has got the same amount of weight to it, and how much control I have. But I've just been doing this for, God, longer than I want to think about now.
Safe word wise, I just use red, yellow, green. It's the simplest, and I don't know. I just like short and simple.
If you use the red as a safe word, it's great. Everybody uses red. If you're at a club or somewhere and something happens, you start screaming red. Even if your partner doesn't stop, I can assure you, everybody around you will hear that and see what's going on and check it out.
Yeah, that's usually pretty true.
Somebody will come in. If you're at a club or an event, you're going to have dungeon monitors. They'll hear it. See what's going on.
Yeah, that is the advantage of going into public play spaces, is that it's certainly a much safer environment, especially if you're playing with somebody new that you haven't played with before, because you will have the dungeon monitors there usually. So, and they're pretty quick and well trained.
And if you're playing at home, have a safety person that you can call or will call you every so often. I have heard numerous horror stories of people who were playing that they had a submissive tied out and their dom went out or did something and had a heart attack and they were left tied out on a bed or on a flogging horse or something for hours until somebody finally figured out, hey, we haven't heard from these two people in a day or so. Let's go see what's going on.
Thank you, Velvet, for doing that. Excellent. And if you're going to play privately, please be really careful that you know the person really well. Make sure that you have any kind of a safety mechanism set up, so that you're either going to text or get a phone call from a friend every 30 minutes or at some appropriate time period, as a safety check. And this goes for both tops and bottoms, because you could get a crazy sub just as easily as you can get a crazy dom.
I've had one sub come at me with a knife in the middle of the scene. Wasn't fun. One thing I do with my gear, any of the attachments for like my wrist cuffs, I use quick releases on them. So all you have to do is pop them and a release. You don't have to, it's not like using a carabiner or a snap hook where you have to lift them up to unhook them. You just pull the release lets go of the hook, and they drop off. I don't care how strong you are, if you have somebody who gets hung up on a set of hooks and they're unconscious, trying to lift them off can be really a pain. It's really hard. I've had it happen.
Yeah, when tying people up, I highly recommend that there is some kind of a quick release mechanism that the sub can operate themselves.
Yes.
You just can't be too safe in that regard. So whether you're using a carabiner or a little clip with a hook, that's the way to go. If you have somebody that's knowledgeable with the rope, you can tie knots that are easily pullable so that they will come loose, but don't be bound really tightly by somebody you don't know. Exactly. Safety first, and always make sure you have scissors for cutting rope as well.
Don't you try to use a knife to cut ropes down. Doing rescue type stuff at work, or being trained to do rescue stuff, we always use paramedic scissors. If you use a knife, there's a very, very good chance you end up cutting a person. Use paramedic scissors, it will go through almost anything. Rope, cord, nylon webbing, thin wire, I mean, the stuff, they're great. And they usually work faster using those than trying to use a knife to hack your way through a rope.
Yeah, I agree. First aid kit, fire extinguisher, bright scissors. Can you refresh those safety measures?
Yeah, I use paramedic scissors. Always have paramedic scissors with me. I have them on my gear belt. I try to get the brightest colored handle, like the fluorescent orange, fluorescent yellow. In a dark room, in a dungeon, if they're laying on the floor, red, green, blue, black handled scissors are hard to find. Orange and yellow ones are not.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
I always have an extra pair of gloves in my first aid kit. Maybe not necessarily for you or your partner, but somebody next to you or down the row a bit may get hurt. I always keep a first aid kit with me. You don't have to have it in a box. Put it in a Ziploc bag. They fold up or crush up real well. A couple of gauze pads, Band-Aids, some Neosporin or Neosporin type first aid gel. Check the dates on your first aid or your antibiotic gels. If it's expired, toss it. If it's like within a few months of being expired, toss it and get new ones. If the stuff expires, it doesn't act as an antibiotic. It actually can make things worse. I always carry there again, because of my training at work, I always carry a CPR mask with me. My daytime job is safety related, safety mitigation. I'm a disaster responder. Everything I do is inherently safe. So it's just in me constantly. Everything I think about, I do is try to do as safe as I can and alleviate or mitigate any kind of hazards before they start.
Yeah, there's some kinds of play I just refuse to do. I won't do any kind of play with asphyxiation at all. It's just too darn dangerous, and people have died. Jay will probably, next week, will probably talk about the fact that he is an expert witness often in BDSM cases. And he did tell me about a case where I guess a Dom had strangled his wife and she died, and they were going to prosecute him. So he became an expert witness, I assume, for the defense. And it's just crazy. It's so easy for stuff to get out of hand. You can have so much fun doing other things, and there are so many other things that you can do for play. Fiddling with death is never a good idea.
Yeah. I also like, if you're going to be, if you're playing at home, have a fire extinguisher. Even if you aren't doing fire or wax or anything with an open flame, just have one around your house. What I'll do is, if I'm playing and I want candles, I will do the electronic, battery operated ones. I try to avoid having open flames around. Yeah, they have they can be very romantic and give you a lot of mood lighting, but if one falls over and it hits the wrong thing, you can have a fire easily. I know UC Berkeley, for instance, does not allow open flames or candles in any of their dorms because they had too many problems with people lighting drapes and curtains on fire. I don't know if all schools do this, but that's one thing to keep in mind.
Yeah, some of the clubs that we go to also have restrictions on fire play, needle play, anything that, or obviously, fire codes for public venues or can be obviously particular in the case of like a bondage a-go-go, which is a bar, or in the case of like Citadel and Power Exchange, they they can often have rules that the city imposes for play as well. And obviously needle play, you're talking about fluids, which in general, I mean, you should always protect yourself against fluids. I mean, as a dom, if you're playing with a sub, I mean, there may or may not be a sexual stimulation which causes fluids, and it's always a good idea to be wearing gloves in those cases, because unless you've had your sub tested, you don't know what you might be catching. So
when I'm doing demos, or at least for myself, I always wear gloves. I've run into a number of occasions where the person I'm playing with halfway through the scene, and I will ask people if they have any medical problems. We'll say, oh, by the way, I have herpes, I have hepatitis. I had somebody come in and ask me to do a flogging scene with them. Thank God they warned me. They had done a single tail demo or single tail scene prior to coming into where I was at, and their back was nicked. Their whole back had little nicks on it. They were weeping. And they asked me if I would do flogging with them, but they had hepatitis. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to contaminate and ruin a flogger for somebody who I don't know. And I'm not going to touch the person, because hepatitis is very easily transmitted, and there are, I don't know what the percentage of it is, but there are a lot of people have it. Be safe. Be really safe. There are a lot of bugs out there that you might not think about.
yeah, well, Shauna talks about this kind of stuff all the time with the STIs. So obviously, knowing your partner is a really good idea. And I personally, I get tested regularly for everything, and I'm more than willing to disclose to anybody that I'm working with or playing with that what my status is, which is always perfectly squeaky clean. So I think that's only a fair thing to do when you're playing. I think we're gonna cut this off. It's been about a half hour, and I'm sort of running out of gas. For those that came in late, you should be able to catch this in replay for 24 hours, and it's available on catch.me/MistressXmas. And hopefully we will see you all next week for the infamous Jay Weissman, author of SM101. And this is going to be great. He is such a kick and has amazing stories to tell. So thank you all for coming, and bye-bye.